Thanks for joining us this morning. We appreciate you taking the time to take a look at Intacct. This morning, our presenter will be Wes Salisbury. Many of you probably have met Wes along the way. Rich experience with cloud-based accounting software, specifically with Intacct, and he's been our team lead on the Intacct practice for quite a while. So today, Wes is going to give a good overview of Intacct. We're very open to having your questions. If you'll just put those in the chat, I'll keep an eye on that, and we'll either answer as we go or answer them at the end. I think we should have plenty of time today, so please don't hesitate if you have questions. I will get out of the way. Wes, take it away.
All right, great. Thank you, Tim. And hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today. Like what Tim was saying, my name is Wes Salisbury. I've been working here at Maynard Casterison in the Sage Intacct space for almost 10 years now. I think it's going to be 10 years in January. And for those of you who don't know what Sage Intacct is a cloud-based accounting package ERP system that we offer. And especially for our not-for-profit folks, it's been a fantastic tool for a lot of our all of our clients who maybe are grant-based, who do fund accounting, things like that. And I just have a quick demonstration, just a quick overview to show you some features, maybe above and beyond maybe what you're used to today. Maybe some of you folks are on QuickBooks, and maybe you're thinking of, hey, what else is on the market to maybe elevate our accounting? And maybe Intacct could be that for you. So let's go ahead and get into the demonstration portion of this. And I'm going to share my screen. And if one of you, Tim, could you just please tell
We've
me if you
got
can
it.
see my screen?
We can see it.
Sweet, thank you. All right, perfect. All right, so first of all, I'm logged into Sage Intacct right now. And like I said before, which I'll probably say multiple times again, Intacct is completely cloud-based. So really, as long as you have an internet-enabled device, something with an internet browser, you can access Sage Intacct. So you don't need to install any special software. You don't need to do any hosting. You don't need to remote in anywhere, do any VPNs. It's just you go to sageintact.com, you punch in your credentials, and you're in. So whether it's and plus you can pull it up on your cell phone, you can pull it up on a tablet, you can do really any form factor of accessing it, as long as, again, the device has internet. All right, so first of all, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of the demonstration and the product here in a minute, but I wanted to just show you this quick landing page right here. Intacct releases new functionality every single quarter, and it does so through these. Like right now, our most recent release is 2025 release 1. 2025 release 2 is going to be coming out. I think it's going to be like May or June or something like that. But these updates are automatically pushed out to every single person who's running Intacct. And it's really neat because, this for new users, this may not necessarily be relevant, but once you've been using the system a while, you get comfortable with what it does today. It may be a good idea for you to go into these release notes and check out, well, hey, what's new on, what's it like a new set of features here on the Intacct side. And I can scroll through here and see like they're rolling out early adopter for their Copilot Close Assistant, which is an upcoming AI tool that kind of helps you with your year-end closing, not year-end, but month and quarter and year-end closing processes. And other updates around, they made some enhancements to ACH payment files, which has been fantastic. Vendor-based approval for AP bill routing, things like that. So like I said before, I just wanted to mention this because Intacct pushes out releases automatically every quarter. You don't need to pay extra for to have someone come in and update your file. You don't need to have any downtime. It's just everything gets pushed out automatically. All right, that's kind of the main thing I wanted to point out here as part of this homepage, but I don't want to, there's other neat stuff here on the homepage to access the help center and join like the Intacct community where you can chat with other Intacct users. But we have a pretty short time span today, so I wanted to get into the good stuff. All right, so pretty much the way in which you navigate around Intacct is you navigate by selecting the applications dropdown here up in the upper left. And this will allow you then to pick and choose like what module you're in. and what you have access to. Bear in mind, this is a demo environment. It pretty much has everything enabled, so we have a lot of menu choices here. But bear in mind that in reality, you're going to only end up with like 7 or 8 of these, because not everyone is going to have like fixed assets in Intacct. Not everyone is going to have inventory enabled, stuff like that. But the thing I wanted to lead off with is Intacct has its own integrated dashboard software directly in the software itself. It's not some third party that you have to hook in. Intacct does have some partnerships with third parties for graph creating and dashboarding and stuff like that if you want. But the dashboards that the dashboarding tool that they have just stock with the software is plenty powerful. Okay, so under dashboards here, I'm going to go into role-based dashboard, and I can create as many dashboards as I want. I can create as many dashboards as I want here, and I can create different views of them. So I have a CFO dashboard, which I can tailor for CFOs. I have a grant manager dashboard, which I'll also show you in a minute for those of you who are grant funded. So I'm going to go ahead and click into CFO first, because that's going to give me a good idea as to just the full set of features that you can have in a dashboard. All right, so as you can see here, there's a lot of stuff here, and this is by design so that you can pretty much see all the individual things that you can do with dashboarding. So yeah, this is my CFO dashboard. And first of all, here at the top, I have all of these performance cards. So some people call these key performance indicators, but these are pretty much at a glance, just summary metrics that show you, hey, this, I have a metric here called fundraising expenses, where we can see that, hey, this year to date, our fundraising expenses as a percentage of total expenses are 4%, and we are under this metric by 1% versus the prior year. So that appears as a downward facing green arrow saying like, hey, this is a favorable variance. But then we're going to have instances like this with total expenditures where we have 8.4 million of expenditures this year, but that's above the prior year at the same time. So that's going to be an upward facing red arrow to say that this is an unfavorable variance. So even though we're presenting these numbers at very high, as kind of summarized levels, this dashboarding tool sits on top of your live Intacct data. So as people go out through the system and post new stuff, they post entries, they approve bills, they receive stuff in, stuff like that. All these numbers are going to be updated as you run the reports, as you run the dashboard again. So there's no concept of batch posting inside of Intacct. You don't need to wait like 3-4 hours for someone to finish a posting to or post a batch to see everything. Just each one of the transactions post individually. But what I wanted to show you here is if I click on one of these performance cards, what it's going to do is it's going to give me a listing of all this stuff. Well, it's going to give me a listing of all of my it's going to show like my prior year and my current year actuals for all these different expenditure accounts. So bear in mind, this is a demo database that has most of its data in 2021, 2020. So the current year in this context is 2021. Prior year is 2020. And I can see here that, my salaries have increased year over year. My bonuses pretty much have remained constant. My program supplies have remained constant, but I can see that I have some variances in some of these, and some of these may be worth digging into the detail for. So if I wanted to dig into my program fees, for instance, for specifically 2021, anything that is a blue link or a green link in some cases in Intacct is clickable. And as I click into program fees right here, what it's going to give me is it's going to give me a general ledger report of all of my activities that posted in that account for that year. So I clicked into program fees, and I can see here there's a lot of imported transactions. There's a lot of payments. There's accounts payable bills, stuff like that. The example I want to kind of show you, I know it's not a huge dollar amount, but I have this bill for Adam and Frost LLC. And I can see that, it's coded to my operations function, my general fund, and it's coded to my Claremont Impact Study, and maybe this is a grant. So we're going to get into grant tracking a little bit later. But again, anything that is a blue or green link you can click into. So I'm going to click into this dollar amount right here. And that's going to take me to my my bill. And I can see here that this bill, I can see it's bill number AP013. I can see that it's been paid with check number 188. It was paid on 2/27/21. And in addition, inside of Intacct, you can put attachments, documentation on pretty much everything. So I did so with this bill right here. And if I click on this paperclip for this bill, even if it's, 6, 7, 10 years in the future, you can click on that paperclip and it's going to pull up your invoice. So these invoices don't get archived. They don't they don't go away after so many years. They are permanent. They are permanent parts of the system unless, someone who's an administrator with all the permissions in the world makes tweaks. But anyway, yeah, but you can pull up any documentation you have on pretty much any transaction or any, vendor, customer record, things like that. But I wanted to share this because this is useful to a lot of people because inside of Intacct, even from the highest level of reporting, just like total expenditures here, you can click into those numbers and get down to the individual transactions themselves without switching screens. All right. Outside of that, and again, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will address them at the end here. But in addition to just tracking pretty much raw expenses or just grand totals here, you can also calculate using what are called statistical accounts. So there may be instances where you want to report on and do computations against stuff that may not be financial, may not be dollars and cents. So an example of this would be like square footage, FTEs, number of stores, or number of locations, things like that. But in this case, I have a performance card here that says cost per hour of learning. So on the back end here, I have a statistical account called hours of learning, where I'm, someone's going in, entering in like, hey, for this month in this department, whatever, we booked this many hours of learning. And then in this performance card, we're taking a cost numerator and dividing it by that statistical account to come up with this metric right here. And again, it shows us that we're trending, higher versus the prior year. All right, just a little bit more on this dashboard, then I'll move into the other stuff. Excuse me again. You also have the ability to create and on your dashboards have these waterfall charts, donut charts, even just miniaturized financial reports like this one, where I have my budget for the year, my year-to-date actuals, my commitments or encumbrances, whatever you want to call them, and then a remaining budget over here. So you can if you track a budget inside of Intacct, you can make sure that this function is staying on target with budget, all those things. All right. I don't want to, there's other stuff I could potentially point out here, but since this session is tailored for nonprofits, I'm going to go ahead and switch to my grant manager dashboard. So a lot of nonprofits here on the call and a lot of nonprofits overall get a lot of grant money often. So I wanted to just show you how you can also report on grants out of Sage Intacct. So again, this is a completely different dashboard for a completely different purpose. It has a completely different set of reports on it. And we'll go, as these generate, I'll just go ahead and scroll up here. Okay, so under grant positions right here, this is a report I can put together that says, hey, for all these different grants I have, so like this Health Initiative 1 grant, we've been awarded $1.4 million as part of this. And we've booked all that revenue. So we don't have any draw remaining, and that's just a computed field. And then we can see that we've booked 1.2 million in expenditures from the beginning of this grant to the end of it. So we do have some remaining spend on this. So this is, of course, important to know because if you want to track, hey, if I have X number of dollars to spend on this grant, how much have I spent so far? am I even eligible to spend any more on this grant, right? So just these are basic reports that you can put on dashboards like this. And again, anything that is blue, you can click into and check out all the stuff that's posted to that. So if I want to look at the expenditures for this grant, I can click on this and it shows me everything for this grant. I don't need to go export to Excel. I don't need to do any dancing around trying to figure out how much I've spent on what. All right. In addition to that, I did want to quickly go back to the CFO dashboard. I don't want to linger too much on it, but I think this is important. One of the things that makes Intacct not necessarily unique to modern accounting systems, but this is just kind of like this is what makes Intacct different from a lot of legacy systems, is with a lot of legacy systems and yeah, a lot of legacy systems, they use what's called a segmented chart of accounts. So it's your system may have like your main account segment dash function or dash department dash location dash grant, stuff like that. So it's all contained within one string, which has worked well for a long time. But the thing that that can cause is your chart of accounts ends up getting really bloated and it becomes really hard to manage. Intacct uses these things called dimensions to add context to transactions. So let me go ahead and go into another screen here just to show you. Or let me go ahead and punch in kind of start punching in a bill just to illustrate this point. Okay. So I pop open a bill or a journal entry or whatever transaction it is. Down here in the entries area, when I go code it and distribute it out to which accounts I want it distributed to, I can select a main GL account, which we'll just go ahead and say program fees. And then using dimensions, all these separate fields for project, grant, fund, function, site, etc., I can add context into what each one of these lines and each one of my transactions should post to, right? So I can say, hey, this is going to be under grant number 401. It's that Health Initiative 1 grant that we were looking at earlier. And then if I can, a lot of these get automatically defaulted because that's the way I set up the grant. But I can select a fund then, whether this is for my general fund or if I have a separate fund for grants, if I set things up that way. I can code things to a function or a department. Then I can say it's for a particular site. And I can say whether something is related to any type of restriction at all, if you want to track restricted funds like that. Okay, so we're going to get into some transactions in a little bit here, but I just wanted to quickly illustrate that as you go in and enter in transactions, you're coding them to projects, grants, funds, functions, stuff like that. And the reason why this is powerful is in your dashboards and in your reports pretty much all across the system, you have these drop downs for all, you can pretty much filter for what you want to see. So this is my function drop down right here. And I can say now I want to filter for just the fundraising function. Like right now I'm seeing like every single function, every single department all over the organization. But if I want to run this just for fundraising, I can select fundraising as my filter. All right. And then notice here, all of my figures, all of my reports get redrawn to reflect just the fundraising function. So my expenditures report down here, where it was much more significant back when we were running it for the entire organization. It's now a lot, it's kind of shrunken down quite a bit because we're only looking at a single function. And the same thing for funds. I could filter for an individual fund if I wanted, or I could filter for a grant, which in this case, this dashboard isn't tailored for grants necessarily, but the grants dashboard is. But I just wanted to call that out about dimensions. For those of you, like I said, who may be running a legacy software, a lot of those are set up to have segmented chart of accounts where you select one big account string. And then for some of you who are maybe on something more entry level like QuickBooks, you do have separate fields for, like you have a separate class field as a quote unquote dimension, but you don't get a lot of them. So you have to kind of you kind of have to make that one class dimension you get with QuickBooks, you have to make that work hard. So anyway, that's about it when it comes to dashboards. I think we're making pretty good time. I want to kind of go through a couple of really neat things that are specific for nonprofits that I think is important to show. So one thing I wanted to talk about real quick is I wanted to talk about this grant billing module that integrates with pretty much every single part of the system. So if you are grant funded, one of the things that you may run across is, or one of the things you have to do is you have to pretty much figure out which transactions that you post on a regular basis are eligible for reimbursement, if that's the way you're funded. So Intacct has this grants module, or it's essentially the project accounting module, but it's rebranded as grants since it serves a really similar purpose. It allows you to tag transactions as qualified or not qualified expenses for reimbursement. And then it adds a workflow where you can pretty much say, I want to bill all these expenses out to my funder. So the example I want to use, I'm going to go ahead and go into purchasing here. I'm going to go ahead and go into purchasing and put in a vendor invoice. So, I just got a bill from a vendor. I input these through purchasing, and I'm just going to do that pretty quickly here. All right, let's just say I want, I'll choose ABC Office Supplies. So I choose my vendor and vendor document number. This is my bill number. I'll just put in something random. And I know I talked about attachments earlier, but I just wanted to show you how easy it is to add attachments to your transactions. So right here, I have just a File Explorer window. All I got to do is just select what I want to bring in, whether it's one document, 10 documents, a mix of different file types, stuff like that. I just have 3 PDF documents that I'll just drag and drop here. So I just drag and I let go of my mouse button and it automatically uploads all those PDFs. So I don't need to do anything all that special. It's just click and drag. And then these 3 documents are associated with that bill forever. So super nice for audits and things like that. All right. Then here in the invoice area, in this particular demo environment, I have items set up, but you can set these up as GL accounts if it works better for your organization. But I'm going to purchase some IT consulting. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm just buying IT consulting. And I'm going to code it to grant 401. And that populates a bunch of these other fields here. Now, I said earlier, qualified expense. By default, so this grant billing module inside of Intacct gives you this checkbox that allows you to mark transactions as whether they're a qualified expense or not. So this is just checked by default if you set it up that way. So we'll just go ahead and leave it and code it to all of our dimensions. And then I'll just say this is for $2,000. All right, $2,000, and I'll just go ahead and post this. And like I said before, Intacct doesn't really do batch posting this like the way a lot of other legacy systems will do. So by me hitting that post button, it immediately updates my dashboards and all of my reports that, hey, I spent money on this grant. So if I were to go back to my grant dashboard, that $2,000 charge I just entered in would show up. All right, so I posted that bill. It's a qualified expense. It's assumed I'm going to bill this out. So what this workflow gives you is it gives you this ability to go into this grants module. You can rename it to whatever you want, by the way. You can just call it grants. So I go into here and I click on generate invoices. And this is pretty much this is pretty much an input screen where I say, hey, how do I want to bill? Do I want to bill for an entire funder all at once, or do I want to invoice on an individual grant basis? I'll just say I'm going to bill on an individual grant basis for now because that's just typically what you see. So I'll select 401 as my grant, and it's smart enough to know that this grant is related to this funder. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and hit preview. So the neat thing we get here is in this screen, once we've selected a grant, we've selected, whatever it is, however we want to bill this. as I scroll through all these different things that are eligible to get like expensed and billed to your funder, if I scroll down here, I'm going to see this area under purchasing transactions where I see this invoice I just entered in. Most of the time, you're going to probably have a lot more than one bill that gets, you're going to have a lot more than one expense that gets billed out on a monthly basis. But in this case, we do. So this is pretty much at a glance, it allows me to see, hey, I had a bill for ABC office supplies for IT consulting at a price of $2,000 that is eligible to be billed out. So I can check this box or I can uncheck it if I don't want to bill it. If I want to view the source documentation, like the bill itself, I could click on where it says view source if I wanted to double check and make sure, yes, this is actually a qualified expense. And then I can pull up, again, the attachments if I want to pull them up here. Okay. So I'll show this again in a moment. But I don't need to make any changes here. Everything looks good. Once I'm comfortable with the amount that I'm billing, I can go ahead and hit create invoice. So what this is going to do is it's taking all the stuff I selected and it's going to go out and create a receivables invoice for that grant. It's going to hit accounts receivable and it's going to increase my grant income unless there's a different account that you want for it to post to. All right. So then when this generates, it goes into the order entry module. And I'll pull up all these transaction types. You'd probably only have a couple of these. It's just because this is a demo environment, it has to touch all the bases. So we'll go ahead and go into this grant time and expense invoice, which is what I selected in the initial process. And I'm going to see this invoice number 103. And I'm going to see that I am billing my customer. I'm billing my customer for IT consulting in the amount of $2,000. So the cool thing about this module, what you get out of it is, well, of course, this is going to post to accounts receivable and it's going to post to revenue. But the other thing you get is if I go to the source and attachments tab, you're going to see all of the transactions that were billed out on this invoice, as well as any attachments associated with them. So if I'm billing out like 25 different individual expenses as part of this, if I'm billing out a whole bunch of individual transactions here, I would see them listed here. And then I also have this link back to the attachments. So again, even 10 years in the future, or if, some grant funders have you undergo an audit once in a while to say, hey, show me what you billed out on this. You can just go in the system and say, hey, I billed this, 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 and this. Here's even the PDF copies. So everything is in one location. Everything is saved in perpetuity. So really great tracking there. I'll get out of here. All right. Sweet. So yeah, that's kind of the grant billing process. This is a neat feature inside of Intacct, like I just said, that really helps streamline the grant billing process if your grant funding is primarily reimbursement billing, like we just talked about. Okay. And let's see, we're at about half an hour. I'll just go ahead and show you this last bit real quick. Oh, yeah,
Wes,
Tim.
can I just jump in here? I know I told you I was going to hold questions to the end, but it seemed like a natural stopping point. I have a quick question. How does Sage Intacct track labor or time? I didn't see a timesheet option in the dropdown. Also, does Intacct have payroll?
Yeah, so that's a phenomenal question. So there's a few different ways in which you can go about this. Intacct, and this instance apparently doesn't have it, or I haven't given myself access to it. Typically, I'll go ahead and tell you the way people typically do it. So the way people typically do it is they will already have like a third-party payroll system in place, like a Paychex, an ADP, a Paycor, stuff like that. Most of the time, what will happen is time is, of course, tracked in payroll. And oftentimes, it makes sense to import that time data into Intacct, so you can see like how much time people have spent on each grant, and then you can use that for allocation purposes, other things like that. So the answer to that is most of the time you integrate that in from a third-party payroll provider that you already have. Intacct does have its own, it's a payroll add-on module that I'm not prepared to show you right now, but that is, it's, yeah, Sage Intacct Payroll. It is powered by ADP, so they do have a partnership with ADP as part of that. This thing I'm kind of hovering over right now, this is kind of what you see less often. But you do have the ability to import or input staff timesheets. So you can say, hey, it's related to, you know, this employee on this project. Okay. Yeah, so you can yeah, you can code time to projects. You can code time to projects and tasks and things like that. And you know that'll calculate a labor cost for that gets allocated to your various projects and grants. But anyway, I gave 3 different ways in which people track that. So hopefully that
Good.
is sufficient.
Great. Thank you. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Very good. Awesome. So, okay. Sweet. The last bit I wanted to talk to you about real quick is I wanted to go to I wanted to go to yeah, oh yeah, dynamic allocations. So Intacct has this neat feature called dynamic allocations, which is really nice. One thing I wanted to throw out, so there's 2 different ways to do allocations inside of Intacct. There's this concept of what's called a transaction allocation. And with a transaction allocation, the way that this is set up is this, I didn't call it out earlier, but when you input a transaction like a bill into Intacct, instead of selecting each and every like dimension field, you can select what's called an allocation. And when you select an allocation, what it does is it takes that line, like a $1,000 line, and it automatically splits it out 60%, 40% to these various funds and projects and things like that. So that's just a time saver if the way that your allocations work is they're just fixed and, you know, maybe they change once a year, but for the most part, they're fixed. However, that's not the focus of what I wanted to talk about. The thing I wanted to talk about is I wanted to talk about account allocations. So this uses, or in the interface, they're called account allocations. The module is called dynamic allocations. And the whole point of this is that it allows you to create allocations in the system that are variable, or the idea is they're going to be variable every month. These are the types of, this is the type of, this type of activity will be like maybe you have like a pooled admin cost that you know post to over time. You know, it's just like pooled. It's intended to get allocated out. And then at the end of the month, you allocate that amount out by something that's going to be variable. It's like percentage of revenue, percentage of total expense, FTEs, square footage, although square footage is a little bit more static than, you know, FTEs. But anyway, my point is that this module allows you to post allocations that are going to be variable every month. So just as a quick example here, I have this allocation definition called allocation by function. And the idea behind this is we are going to allocate program fees by revenue, okay, on a per project or per grant basis. So what I'm going to go ahead and do real quick, and just for the sake of time, I'll pull up one that already posted because this sometimes can take a minute to generate. But I'm going to pull up one of these entries for allocation by function, and you can build as many of these allocations as you want. But essentially what's going to happen here is it's going to grab that pooled account balance. So this is account 5306. So it's going to get rid of that from the shared function, and then that's going to get allocated out to all these various projects or grants. So kind of relating to the question that was posted before, if you allocate expenses maybe based on the amount of time that's been spent on each or the FTEs assigned to each grant, then you can build an allocation out to allocate out based on number of FTEs per grant. So a grant that has 5 FTEs assigned to it is going to get more of the expense than someone where a grant that only has 2 FTEs assigned to it. Okay. And you can get really creative with this stuff. You can allocate stuff based on, like I said before, percentage of revenue, percentage of expense, like financial based metrics, or you can use statistical accounts to allocate those out. Okay. Well, those are the main things I wanted to touch on. I know I kind of went through that one a little bit quicker than the other one, but we are at 11:35, so we do have a little bit of time left for questions. But anyway, questions, comments, anything like that?
I'll ask just a couple questions here and encourage people to put their questions in the Q&A if you have more. But Wes, can you talk briefly about how Intacct is licensed? Is it all inclusive? Is it individual modules or functions? Just in general, how is Intacct licensed?
Yep. The way it's licensed is you kind of from a pricing breakdown perspective, you have like you purchase essentially the base like Intacct subscription, which includes your core modules. And core modules in this case, I'll just go ahead and order them so that they kind of line up a little bit nicely here. So your core modules are pretty much your general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, order entry, purchasing, and cash management, as well as your reporting and dashboarding. So those are all of your core modules. The core subscription covers that. Intacct's licensing is also based on users. I'll go ahead and go into the users area right now. You go on when we're in our users right here. I don't have any employee users in here, but business users essentially are your full users. So these type of users can be given access to whatever it is you want to give them. But there is another type of user type called an employee user, which are they're cheaper, but they're bought in packages of 10, and those are effectively view only for the most part. But they can input things like purchase requisitions. They can input things like they can approve things. And in some cases, they can even approve payments if they have that permission. But no, that is generally the way Intacct is licensed. There are some add-on modules like the inventory module, the grants billing module, fixed assets. Those are all add-on modules. But you do the core functionality you get with APAR, GL, and purchasing and order entry that fits the bill for most people.
Good. Thank you. Good. And then this is, you showed an example of how people could attach documents. How is storage handled? Are you paying for specific storage capacities, or is it built into the price of Intacct?
It's built into the price. Into the price. I think I've been doing this long enough to remember that I think they changed their policy on this even before I started my career all that time ago. But there was a time where they, I think, did have some add-on charges if you like had like a really, really, really large database. But that was like 15 years ago. And the answer is it's all included in the price. So unlimited storage, transaction-wise, attachment-wise, yeah, you don't have to worry about that.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Good. All right. Let's see. Can we give a range of pricing? Is it annual cost? And I know it's dependent upon which modules, just trying to compare to what we spend per year on current accounting system, including timesheets, payroll, and a CRM. I'll actually take this one on. Really would like to ask a few more discovery questions. We'd be happy to provide you pricing, but it's one where it really is dependent upon a bunch of different variables, and we'd be happy to help you, address your very specific situation. You can reach out to me, or you can reach out to Tim Bograkis. He's our director of business development, or whoever at Maynard. Contact them, and we'd be happy to have a quick conversation and we won't be in your face about it, but we'd help you put some pricing together.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Yeah, that's a multi-layered question, which, there's other pieces like a CRM and stuff like that that would need to be addressed. So,
Yes.
yep.
Perfect. Good. I don't see any additional questions. So with that, I will thank Wes for his time and his expertise. I'll thank those of you who are attending. Appreciate your interest and attention. I know that a video of this will be made available, and there'll probably be some follow-up from our team. But thanks again for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on other webinars.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Have a great Friday. For those of you who are watching this live, for those of you watching the recording, it may not be Friday, but if it is, no matter what day it is, have a great day.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank you all.
Take care.
Yep. Bye now.